Tonight's case takes us back to a quiet council house in North London, a home that in the late 1970s became the centre of one of the most famous and controversial paranormal investigations in history. It started with something simple, a knocking sound. In August 1977, a single mother and her children began hearing strange noises. At first, it was just bumps and bangs in the night, but soon the disturbances grew harder to ignore. Furniture was said to move on its own, toys reportedly flew across the rooms, beds shook violently in the dark, and then there was a voice. One of the daughters, an 11-year-old girl, allegedly began speaking in a deep, raspy voice that claimed to belong to a man who had once lived and died in the house. Investigators, journalists, neighbours and even police officers would eventually witness some of the events inside the house. Some believed they were seeing genuine paranormal activity. Others believed it was an elaborate hoax, but one detail from the case still sends a chill down the spine. One night, investigators heard 3 loud knocks coming from inside the wall. When they asked what the knocks meant, the mysterious voice reportedly replied,
3 knocks means death.
So tonight, we're opening the case file on one of the most debated hauntings ever recorded. Was this a genuine poltergeist haunting, a troubled family caught in something they couldn't control, or one of the most convincing paranormal hoaxes in history? Let's step into the story.
Well, hello everybody and welcome back. Yvonne here from Ghost Watchers Northwest. So tonight's discussion is going to be the Enfield haunting. Question number 1. Why are poltergeists more often centred around children? Right, so my opinion or reasoning for this would be that a child is more of an easy target due to them being more vulnerable, more emotional, and if it was an adult, then they've got more things going on in their life and more stress and things that if something happened they'd just brush it off, where a child would pay more notice of it and be more scared, I suppose. So I think that's why they're always centred around children, because they're like an easy target, easier to control, easier to believe.
So our aim with these case files is to explore the stories, evidence and different viewpoints surrounding famous paranormal investigations, while also remembering that these involve real people and real events. So it's also important to be sensitive. So the first question is, why are poltergeist cases often centred around children? Now, this is quite a common occurrence that we might find. So in this particular case, it involves Janet Hodgson. She's a 12-year-old girl, so again, a child. So some believe that poltergeist activity centres around children due to a vulnerable time, especially when it comes to hormones and puberty and things like that. And it often is more associated with females, believe it or not, rather than males. So often around a time when we see girls that are going through changes, and sometimes people believe that poltergeist activity can occur around these changes. So it's almost like the energy that they're giving off can create a poltergeist. Now, on the other hand, sceptics will say that if you're going to fake a case like this, then it's most likely to be children that would fake it due to their imagination and, sometimes attention seeking. So that's what the critics or skeptics might believe, and they might suggest that poltergeist activity isn't real.
Number 2, could stress or trauma trigger paranormal activity? Yeah, possibly, because you know, your emotions would be high and therefore making you more vulnerable. Your mental state might not be, you know, itself. So I think there could be a link there, and possibly, yeah, I'd say yes. So,
and the next question is, can stress or trauma trigger paranormal activity? Now, when we look at the Hodgson family, they were under a lot of pressure. So a single mom, 4 kids, financial struggles, and then suddenly they have this intense media attention. So believers might believe that this kind of emotional stress and struggles and strain of everyday life can create poltergeist activity and is the perfect brew, if you'd like, for creating a poltergeist. So that's what believers would say. However, critics might suggest otherwise. They would say that this kind of stress creates behaviour and not ghosts. So storytelling, acting out, which in turn could create a situation that might look like a poltergeist, haunting, or paranormal activity. So that's what the critics might say anyway. So it's important that we look at both sides when we're discussing these topics.
So number 3, if Janet fakes some events, could that disprove everything? It depends how you look at it, really. Personally, after watching the clips and watching some, you know, clips and that on it, I think maybe there might be a possibility that, you know, they did have some paranormal activity, and then they seemed to get some attention off that, and then they possibly could have started faking things. I mean, because watching the videos like the voice, I think that was definitely Janet doing that voice. I don't think it disproves everything, because, like I said, it could have started off, you know, with some paranormal activity, but I do think after the attention and that, a few things were fake.
If Janet faked some events, does that disprove anything? So this is where the case can get really messy, because Janet allegedly admitted to faking 2% of the activity, and I think Maurice, the lead investigator, also said that the kids did play up. So believers would suggest the fact that Janet actually admitted to faking 2% of the case, 2% of the activity would also strengthen the cause that it is real. Now they would say, well, she's admitted to 2% of the paranormal activity being fake, so the rest must be real. However, skeptics would strongly disagree, because they see it as, if you've admitted to falsifying any kind of paranormal activity, then to them, they will just dismiss it and they will say that the rest is fake. Because once you've proven deception, then it casts doubt. So you could have a lot of skeptics saying that, you know, she's admitted to faking some stuff, so the whole thing must be fake. And when I've looked at this case, it is really difficult, because part of me thinks some of it's definitely real, but then there has been, you know, investigators have had doubt over a couple of incidents where they felt there could have been a bit of trickery. In one of the audio clips I did watch myself, I've watched a few clips on this case, I've done a bit of research before going ahead and filming this. Well, I knew about the case, but I've looked into it a little bit more. I've re-listened to the audio clips, and guys, let me tell you, have a listen, type in YouTube, Enfield case recordings, and, you know, I will say this. There was one clip where I did feel that when Janet was being interviewed, she seemed to be laughing a little bit, and I think some people will say that and see it as being a deception. She's messing about, it's just a kid messing about. But then there were other clips where it was quite frightening to watch. I mean, this little girl was putting on a really gruff, really rough voice of a male, quite deep, and this male was named Bill. So if you watch the clips, I'm really 50-50 torn, because some of the clips seem very genuine, but then there's other clips where she's very giggly, smiling. And another argument for against it is that some people have said that the way that she speaks as this Bill is very almost childlike, because she spells out ghost, so she says Ghost, and some critics are saying that this kind of language is very childlike and not what you would imagine an older male to talk. You wouldn't imagine an older male to be like that. So there is that critic as well, but then when you do listen to the footage, it is very, very eerie, and it does make you think, whoa, you know, like, could this be a real poltergeist talking through this little girl? So I suppose the big question here is, if it is staged, so how do you separate the real from the fake? So I'm just giving you guys things that I've read about. I'm just giving you information about what I've heard, what the critics have said, and what believers have said. And it is such a debatable topic, because even after researching myself, I'm really torn. Like, I want to say some of it just seems like, wow, like this is the real deal. But then there's other little parts that makes me doubt little things that might have happened. So I'm just giving you my honest opinion, guys, of what I think. Everybody's entitled to their opinions, and we all have different opinions, and it's always important to be respectful of that.
Number 4, if several people, which included neighbours, journalists, police officers, have witnessed these strange events, could they have been deceived? Mistaken or deceived? Yeah, it could be possible that they could have been mistaken or deceived. It's unfortunately, unless you're there and you see it for yourself, it's just their word, isn't it? I'd like to think, as some of them were adults, that they wouldn't falsify things, but then it's strange what a bit of attention can do. Although the police officer's statement thing, that were quite convincing. So it's an hard one, this. It's possible, but then I might be wrong. So I'll leave it at that, I think.
So the next question is, how could so many adult witnesses be mistaken? And I have to say, this is probably the strongest argument for this being a legit paranormal, haunting, poltergeist activity. And it makes you wonder, how can so many people that were involved in this case, journalists, police officers, investigators, members of the public, all witnessed paranormal activity? And for that many people to experience seeing activity like this, they witness things being moved, and people have made statements describing what they've seen in this house. And this is what baffles me. You know, if so many people are witnessing it, then how can it be fake? It's a very, very difficult one, isn't it, guys? I must admit, it's so difficult, because you're seeing little things that make you doubt it, but then there's other things that just thinks, wow, you know, like, this must be the real deal. So if all this activity has occurred and been witnessed by so many people, how do skeptics disprove it? How do they question this? So I'm just having a look at my notes, and there is a few ways that skeptics disprove this, and this is from first timing. So a lot of the activity happened when attention wasn't fully on Janet. The second suggestion is that it is very much where the brain fills in the gaps. So once people believe that something strange is happening, the brains can just fill in the gaps and it all connects up. And the third one is deception, trickery. So some critics will say that, you know, if you jump in the right moment, it can look like you're levitating. It's quickness, quick movements and distractions. Now, I did read that there was some suggestion to say that they were bending the forks or the spoons. I'm not sure what's right or what's not. I'm not saying what's false or what's true. I'm just discussing what other people are saying around the case. So guys, have a look for yourself, look into this case and let us know what you believe, because the audio of Janet speaking as Bill Wilkins is pretty convincing at times, I must say, and quite unsettling and disturbing to listen to. Also, the knocking is very interesting to watch and read about as well. The investigator Maurice, he asked the ghost to knock 3 times or knock for yes, and they were getting pretty good responses with those knocks as well, I must say. And then you've got the levitation interview incident. So was Janet really levitating? Janet often complained about being lifted out of the bed during a lot of these incidences, and a photographer actually captured an image of Janet levitating. And if you've looked at this image, was she levitating or was this a child just jumping out the bed? So be interesting to know what you guys think about that. As I said before, guys, as well, this case is happened to real people who have experienced something very frightening, and you know, it is something that we do need to be a bit mindful of. I'm not saying that, you know, I'm not saying that it was a hoax, and I'm not saying that it was 100% real either. I'm just looking at the evidence and what's out there and looking at the research.
So guys, if you want to hear the unsettling voice recordings as Janet speaking as Bill Wilkins, then you can look them up on YouTube. I believe some skeptics have described them as unsettling. I have listened to them myself. So, number 1 for me, it's investigate. Number 2, hell yes, definitely a yes. Number 3, my first thing would be run, but then I might go back and start filming. Number 4, I think yes. Yes for me. Poltergeist or prank? For me, a bit of both.
So now it's time for our poltergeist quickfire round. So if you heard knocking in the wall at night, investigate or ignore it. Investigate it, definitely. Would you spend a night in the Enfield house if it was empty today? Absolutely yes, I would love that opportunity. If objects started flying across the room, would you film it or run? I would probably film it while maybe dodging or running a little bit as well. Do you believe children are more connected to paranormal activity? I want to say yes. Poltergeist or prank, your first instinct, poltergeist. Thank you again so much for leaving a comment or taking part in the poll. So we asked what your thoughts are on the Enfield case. Was it a genuine poltergeist haunting, mostly a hoax by the children, a mix of real activity and staged events, or never heard of this case before? So we can reveal that 22% of you believed it was a genuine poltergeist haunting, and 11% of you have never heard of this case before, and 67% believed it was a mix of real activity and staged events. So that's pretty interesting to see. And now I'm going to share some comments. So Yvonne from Ghostwatchers Northwest said it was definitely a mixture of the both, and I have to say I'm pretty much leaning towards that as well. I think there might have been a little bit of staged events, but I do think that a large proportion of it was real. And Pagan Paranormal Explorers, so my lovely husband, has said definitely a mixture of both. Maurice Gross from the Department of Physical Research said when he was there, the children would often play pranks with his equipment, but when they weren't, the activity was very real. And that's a good point as well. I have to say I agree with you on that one. One of our loyal subscribers, David Jones, he said number 1, but sometimes the kids played up, but mostly genuine because they never changed their story. Plus in the beginning, the police were involved and had seen things. And I have to agree with you on that as well, Di. I definitely think the children could play up. I could see it in some of the interviews myself. Definitely a good point. And then Granny Apple says, I think it may have started with a little activity, but then soon became staged. Interesting. So Granny Apple believes it was possibly genuine at the beginning, and then maybe the attention and the hype meant that things became a little bit staged. It's a good point and a good thing to consider. As always, we enjoy reading your comments and your thoughts and opinions. It's always good to see people's different thoughts and opinions on these cases. So I hope you've enjoyed watching tonight's case. If there's a case, guys, that you'd really like us to check out, please let us know in the comments below and we will have a look in that case and we will discuss it.
My final thoughts on the Enfield haunting is, like I said, I think it's a bit of both. I genuinely think it started off with a bit of paranormal activity. The children got the attention and they lapped that up, and they faked up. A lot of it got faked along the way. So in a nutshell, I don't think it was as bad as they was making out. I mean, the levitation, look at the pictures. You can quite clearly see it was a jump off a bed. And when watching the footage, it were just pictures and voice recordings coming from Janet, which is like, Horace, you know, just what you can do. They weren't actually, I've not actually seen any video footage, and they apparently had cameras in the property, but I've not actually seen any proper video footage. So if there is any out there, I've just not found it. If you can let me know what it is, I'd love to see it. So that's my final thought on the subject. So thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe. So if you're curious about any of the recordings that we have mentioned tonight, if you go and search the Enfield Poltergeist tapes and give them a listen. But maybe it's best not to listen on your own, alone in the dark. Maurice. I'll leave you with that. Take care for now, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.
So thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Give us a like and drop us a comment below, because it always makes our day reading the comments. And that brings us to the end of tonight's case file. For nearly 2 years, the quiet home in Enfield was the centre of a storm of paranormal claims. Moving furniture, unexplained knocks, objects flying across rooms, and a mysterious voice that investigators recorded for hours. Some believe the family experienced one of the most convincing cases of poltergeist activity ever documented, Others point to moments where the children were caught staging events and argue that the haunting was nothing more than an elaborate hoax that spiraled out of control. But the unsettling part is, even skeptics admit that not everything reported in the house can be easily explained. Multiple adults, including neighbours, journalists and police officers, said they witnessed strange activity with their own eyes. So the question remains, was the Enfield case simply a story of childhood pranks that went too far? Or was something else sharing that house in North London? Whatever the truth may be, the events that unfolded there still divide paranormal researchers nearly 50 years later, and somewhere in the recordings taken inside that house, the voice that claimed to belong to a dead man can still be heard. 3 knocks. 3 knocks means death. You decide what really happened. Until next time, stay curious and maybe listen closely the next time you hear a knock in the night.